Octavio Rondoletto finally got his first win on the board last week at North Wilkesboro, a track that sits in disrepair in real life but has been revived by iRacing. This week, we travel even deeper into Fantasyland to a track that straight up doesn't even exist. Live from the virtual iRacing Superspeedway, the only iRacing Superspeedway there is, this is round 6 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series, and you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel. Hi, I'm Joey Tebben, and with me in the booth is Sam Ryman. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. iRacing Superspeedway may be a fake track, but it requires completely real and unique driving skills to master. Let's head over to our track guide to learn more about it.
Welcome to iRacing Superspeedway. Back in the early 2000s, the developers at Papyrus were given the chance to create a circuit for their NASCAR racing games that removed any real-world limits. The idea was to amplify all of the qualities of Daytona and Talladega, and then unshackle the cars from restrictor plates since there were no safety concerns. The result was a 3-mile-long, 36-degree bank behemoth. Fast forward to modern day, and iRacing has now brought this track up to spec with their current standards. As you'd expect, this unbelievable creation makes for one of the most unique styles of sim racing. The slipstream allows drivers to stay with one another so easily that it becomes less about the speeds each driver can reach and more about the strategy of racing in a pack. Bump drafting is a technique in which the car behind actually pushes the car in front so that both are able to reach higher speeds. And side drafting is another in which the drivers use the air off the sides of their cars to slow their opponents down. Staying out of trouble is always a difficult aspect of superspeedway racing, and it's not uncommon to see drivers intentionally move to the back of the pack to avoid the chaos. In fact, the high speeds make large wrecks so hard to avoid that the term "the big one" has become commonplace to refer to the almost inevitable multi-car pileups the circuit is known for. Keeping the car clean and in contention is the main goal for much of the event. Despite these dangers, don't be surprised to see some drivers get ambitious and race 4 or even 5 wide at times. Often, for the final few laps, it's a race to the line with any alliances usually dissolving and the driver's urge to win taking over. While it might be a creation that we can't go race in the real world, what it does capture is the dreams we all have as children wondering, what if? And for that, it delivers for drivers and fans alike.
And that was your GSRC track guide for iRacing Superspeedway. Let's take a look at the track details here. Sam, from a distance, it kind of looks like Martinsville, but it's about 6 Martinsville in length and basically unlike it in every single other way.
Yeah, like you say, the track map looks like Martinsville, but it's much easier to associate it with the likes of Talladega or Daytona. You can see the track length there, 3 miles, almost 5 kilometers. And the banking is 36 degrees, very steep indeed. Actually, quite a lot of banking down the straights as well, which could make the starts and the restarts very interesting.
Starts and restarts are always interesting at tracks like these. It's not technically a plate track, I don't believe, because they don't have the plates on because it's a fantasy track. But you can always assume when cars are all packed together like this and going as fast as they are that we probably will get a couple starts and restarts. So we got 5.5 minutes, a little over 5.5 minutes left in practice. Lots of drivers just getting as much race pack running as they can. I guess just trying to figure out before the race starts if the top line could work or where they're going to have to go if they're going to want to win this race.
Yeah, 90 laps around here, so we'll have plenty of time to work out exactly which lines are working, which lines aren't, which cars draft better, which don't draft as well, because it is an open setup, and we'll get into the race details momentarily here. As you mentioned, though, 5 minutes left of practice. These drivers know their way around the track, but any extra little bits of information they could learn could help them out in tonight's 90-lap race.
And before we can get to our 90-lap race tonight, let's take a look at our sponsors. Let's thank all of our sponsors for the PRL Cup Series. Our broadcast is brought to you by ASR, Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. Visit them at advancedsimracing.com.
Our broadcast is also sponsored by RaceLab. RaceLab helps you to improve your driving skills with modern overlays, race statistics, and the native VR integration. You can get the best out of iRacing. Start using it now for free at racelab.app.
Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products add an incredible immersion and realism to any game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com.
And today's event is also brought to you by SimMSA, which stands for Simulation MotorSports Affinity, which provides many consultant services from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring everyone together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SimMSA.net.
And last but not least, the PRL NASCAR Cup Series is also brought to you by NinjaTrader. Ready to compete against the financial markets? Supporting over 60,000 users across the globe, NinjaTrader provides award-winning trading software and brokerage services. NinjaTrader is always free to use for advanced charting, backtesting, and trade simulation. Visit ninjatrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator and start tracking your performance. Well, as we tick down the clock, last couple seconds of practice, let's take a look at the Drivers' Championship after the first half of the season. Drivers' points going up here. Sam, talk us through them.
Yeah, well, like you say, we're about halfway through the season here, and it is very tight up the top. Just 4 points separating the top two, and 17 points setting everyone on the graphic there. James O'Brien, Octavio Randaletto, Bradley Holly, Matthew Long. So this isn't even your top 5 in points. This is actually your top 7 in points, with a tie for first and a tie for second there. Elliot White, Abner Costa, and Robert Bassor Jr. also in that list. And of course, with the amount of chaos that could come as a result of the Superspeedway race, who knows what this is going to like at the end of tonight's event.
And in a super speedway race, you always want teammates to work with, and got lots of strong teams. The top 3 teams separated by 4 points only. Private label Team Hype has the lead at the moment. They're followed by Whataback Racing Black by an absolutely massive 1 point. And then James Bird Racing only 3 points behind. And then it's a pair of SGE eSports teams, the Slipstream team and the Apex team, in 4th and 5th. Now, the race details for today looks pretty similar to what we might see at the other races this season, but I would argue that this race is going to be nothing like any other race this season.
Yeah, I misspoke a moment ago saying it was 90 laps. It's actually 95 laps. What it is 90 minutes. This race could end up being a timed event if we get a few cautions around here. That's definitely a realistic possibility because of how long the lap is around here. Caution lap might take a little bit of time. You don't get any free repairs, no spare car. So if you're involved in a crash, especially a 250-mile-an-hour one, you might be in for a short night, unfortunately. We've already mentioned this an open setup. There is a 24 incident limit, so if you are going to do some slam drafting onto the driver in front of you, you can only get away with it 6 times.
Sam did just say 250 miles per hour. That's not an exaggeration. These cars can hit 250 miles per hour on the straights and even faster. I think some people have hit 255. It's going to be a very fast race. Here's a group of drivers trying to practice their pit road entry if we do get green flag pit stops. It's going to be probably one of the toughest pit roads to get down anywhere on iRacing. The pit speed is still 90 miles per hour, I believe, but when you're trying to come down from about 200 plus, that's a lot of speed you got to give off.
Yeah, 90 miles an hour, calling that a safety speed. A couple other race details here. If we do get a late caution, they will have 1 attempt of a green-white checker, but they won't have any more than that. And as always in the Precision Racing League Cup Series, they have a limited set of tyres, 4 tyre sets. However, that's not going to be a massive storyline here today.
Practice is over. Checkered flag is out. Mark Kalin gets his final practice lap in, and the clock ticks over to qualifying. Now, we got bad news for a good bunch of drivers. After maybe a little bit of a caution fest at North Wilkesboro, the EOL has been handed out to a couple drivers for causing cautions at North Wilkesboro. Trent Dinkle, Barron Hilton, Patrick Cowgill, Joshua Daniels, Bradley Holly, Hudson and Long, Chris Hudson and Matthew Long will be demoted to the back of the field and not allowed to participate in qualifying. But if there's any track to get kicked out of qualifying, this one might be one of the best ones to have that happen to you.
Actually, the pit road limit is 60. The pace speed limit is 90. So qualifying has just got underway here at the iRacing Superspeedway. All the drivers will have attracted themselves for 5 minutes, 2 laps. 2 time laps is what they get. So you see the number 519 of Yao Guerra getting up high here. Obviously, what he's going to be doing right now, but also on his first time lap, is running as high as he can so that he's got as much time and as much track to build as possible to build up his speed. And then when he gets to start lap 2, that's when he'll start going down to the low line. He's actually going down to the low line already, so I guess he already thinks he's built up enough speed in the number 519 Toyota Camry. We have had a couple of recent joiners to this session. We're now looking at a 26 car field, which is good to see because it was less than 20 cars not that a few minutes ago. So nice to see a healthy field size here, which means we can probably get away with a wreck or two and still have a decent amount of cars to put on the show for us.
And if you've run any of the fixed races these past couple weeks with your 24 to 30 car fields, you know that you can wipe out a good portion of the field around here and still have quite a few cars to have a good race. Joao Guerra goes to pole position, but he's the only car who set a time, so that's not a surprise. Here is the 07 rather. This is Scotty Johnson. Crosses the line to go P2, 0.2 of a second slower than Guerra, but is that just because of the way he drove his first lap? Charles Sumner 0.7 slower than Guerra. I think he was just running the top. And now, once Guerra crosses the line, we'll start to see some legitimate laps from everybody.
Yeah, I never like to have a faster lap 1 at a super speedway. Now, the only reason some of these drivers may be concerned if their pace is a little bit off, as Guerra finishes his second lap and runs a 44.7, is due to the fact that it's open setup. We might see some drivers slow just because of the fact that they might not have as fast of a car setup as their competitors, but I think most of them are going to be fairly similar on time. Charles Sumner now to the top. Brandon Walter, too much tape, I'm assuming. That's one problem you can run into with open setups.
Yeah, I think I saw a car like that on I-95 last week. They had to pull off. They probably had to call the fire department, and Brandon Walter needs to get out of that thing or else he'll have carbon monoxide poisoning before we know it. Charles Sumner on pole at the moment. Here's the Pepsi motor vehicle. I think that's a new sponsor for this car. Michael Witt, normally not driving the Pepsi car, but good to see him get a totally carbonated sponsor in the SG eSports team. I'm not sure if he's on the Slipstream or the Apex squad, but he's going to come around turns 3 and 4 to try and set his first lap. Here's Abner Acosta, guy who knows how to win at every type of track there is. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he won the truck race here, the PRL truck race here last week. So he's won here in one type of car, but this is a very, very different package.
We've had a couple other drivers, White and Kalin, also blow their motors during their qualifying attempts. It looks like Abner Acosta is okay. And, you know, that's not too surprising, not only because of the fact that, you know, it's open setup and people are slapping on tape to see how fast they'll get there go, but I've got to imagine that qualifying towards the top of the field and qualifying towards the back of the field, especially for a 95 lap race here, doesn't make a massive difference. So why not gamble at all and try and get to pole? Because really there are two great qualifying places here, and that's first position and last position. First position gets to control the race from the start and maybe hold it all race long, and last position is the first drive on the brakes and the safest drive if a wreck breaks out in front of him.
Don't know what happened to Abner Acosta on that second lap. I think he might have been one of the additional kablamos, to steal a phrase from David Hobbs. But on pole for today, it's Charles Sumner. We don't often see him on pole, but here he is. He's alongside Joao Guerra, whose early run really paid off. And Waldo Walden and Robert Bissaw Jr. are behind on row 2. Octavio Rondoletto, defending winner, is 5th, followed by Michael Witt in 6th. Then it's Scotty Johnson and Chad Brown on row 8, and Mark Kalin and Abner Acosta will round out your top 10.
Despite blowing his motor, Elliott White will start from 11th position ahead of Brandon Walter, who had a very bizarre incident in practice, by the way. He ended up on the tyre barriers entering pit road. James O'Brien will start from 13th place ahead of Michel Gagnon. Pat Harvey and Aaron Self on row number 8, the last two drivers to set times. Now starting from the back half of the field are Bradley Holly, Matthew Long, Trent Dinkel and Adam Zemke. And on our last page here, you see 6 of those drivers who haven't turned a lap: Taylor Stout, Chris Hudson, Baron Hilton, Patrick Cowgill, Nicholas Hunter, but he's not racing. I believe he's helping out a couple other drivers, and Marc-Andre Cosette there, starting from last place.
Yeah, Nicholas Hunter working for 2 different teams today. He's working with the Whataback Racing team, and he's also working for the GSRC team. He's given us all those top secrets, the keys to the race, and all the things he is observing from the pit wall. But as everybody sits on the grid right now, we will hopefully get going in a few moments. I worry we may have to wait the full 2 minutes because Nicholas accidentally joined the session as a driver. But this waiting period gives us a couple seconds to really think about what's going to go on in this race. In the pre-race, we talked about how there's kind of 2 ways this could go. Everybody could run in single file for 90 laps, or they could race as hard as they possibly can from the get-go, and we could wreck half the field. So where do you think we're going to be? You think we're going to be in the middle or on either end of the extreme?
Well, the safest bet I can say is somewhere in between. We did see some pretty decent pack racing going on in practice, so these drivers can do it. The question is, of course, can they do it under race conditions when the money's on the line, so to say. Obviously, these drivers go to trickier race tracks where some of them might not always have the opportunity of being able to win a race throughout the course of the season. So whenever you do come to a super speedway like this, when everyone's bunched together as a pack, might make a couple of drivers a bit hungrier than others. And even though this is a long race, 95 laps, that might not necessarily feel long to the drivers, that low lap count, and maybe they will be in sprint race mentality.
And let's just say you'll get quite a bit of a break every lap. You'll be in close quarters with all the other drivers, but these straights are very, very, very long. You're not really going to be throwing that wheel around. But here's the weather. We'll be going green in a few moments, but the weather says 70% humidity. It's pretty sticky out here in fake Chelmsford, Massachusetts, rather. And then the air temp and track temp look pretty cold, it looks like.
Well, this is definitely my favorite paint scheme, the number 98 Tropicana machine of Charles Sumner. I don't have anything partial towards Tropicana as a brand. They are definitely well known for making orange juice, and I'm sure it tastes good. I'm not much of an orange juice drinker, but I'll tell you this, they sure make pretty cars. And I think the rest of the field is going to like the fact that that car's on pole, because it'll be easy to watch taking off as the pace car peels off.
The 25-car field gets ready to go here at iRacing Superspeedway. It's quite a long crawl to the start-finish line, but everyone's on the throttle and the green flag is in the air at iRacing Superspeedway.
Yeah, one downside to these big tracks like this is they have long gears, so you see the driver starting from 4th place there. I believe that's Walter Walden. he did not get a good launch. And well, if you get a bad start here, you might drop back several car lengths, just due to the fact that it's going to take a little while to build up your momentum with how tall the gears are.
Looks like a couple drivers falling to the back, maybe deliberately, maybe not deliberately. I see Marc-Andre Cassette is all the way to the back. He's already lost the draft, I think, so I don't know if that was intentional or if he just hasn't set up this car very well, but he is not in a good position unless we get a caution to bring him back into the field. But right now, up front, about 7 cars back, it is single file. There are a few drivers on the top line, led by Joao Guerra and Waldo Walden, but they are falling back because they got nobody up there to help them.
Yeah, my initial thought would have been that it was intentional to try and back away from the pack a little bit here, and you know, just in case there was an early incident. But Cassette did not turn a lap in practice. He was one of a couple of late joiners that we had. So you never know. Yeah, and he's down on the apron here. That's definitely not the fastest way around. Maybe he doesn't have a setup that can compete.
Yeah, maybe this is a start and park situation. If I was him, I would probably keep it rolling just to, you know, pick up any positions I could, because there's probably going to be a crash, but he looks like he's going to bring it down pit road. We'll see if he exits the car or if he just takes some early service, because if we do go green the whole way, fuel mileage might play a role here.
Yeah, that's definitely a possibility. At the longer tracks like this, you know, you're kind of, well, unless you're in the draft, of course, the draft can definitely help you save a little bit of fuel, but it's not like if you're destined to run that, if you're 1 or 2 laps short, if you're destined to run out of fuel in turn 1, you can't really do a whole lot. You know, you can't coast it all the way around a 3-mile racetrack. So fuel mileage could definitely play a role late on in the event. Right now, I was about to say the entire field is single file. We've got 1 car going upstairs here, and a lot of that could just be due to engine temperature. We see a couple of drivers at the back sticking out as well. Maybe they just want to make sure they're keeping their equipment cool. Even though it's early on here, always good to be on top of that kind of stuff.
And we saw drivers blowing their engines in qualifying, and you certainly don't want to do that in the race, so they're going to take every chance they can get to cool down those motor vehicles. But just look further back. It's first, second, down to, what, 17th, 18th, 19th. I think the last car that isn't quite in this lead group is 18th, Michel Gagnon. Everybody's single file right now. 5 laps in, the top line not formed, and I guess they don't think they need to do anything like that just yet.
Yeah, so they go down the back straight, working lap number 5 already. These laps are clicking off in a hurry around this iRacing Superspeedway. And by the way, the Cassette we saw going into the pits, you can see him on timing and scoring there, has not came out of the pits so far, so he's a couple of laps down now. We've got the number 43 on screen here. That's Chris Hudson from the Carolinas. And he's backed off a little bit too.
Yeah, Chris was one of the drivers who got banished to the back for causing a caution last week, and it looks like he may have just lost the draft. Maybe it's intentional, maybe he wants to stay back there so he has no chance of getting involved in a crash, but unfortunately for him, the top 18 are all going single file, and it's very hard to crash when you're going single file.
Yeah, I wonder what all this is about, because he was running perfectly all right with the pack for the first few laps. Oh, I think it was a connection issue. He blinked out for a little bit, so he probably pulled out of the pack to make sure he didn't get run over.
Well, and remember, if you blink, you don't get the draft. So if you're blinked out for like 3 seconds, you're just going to be plummeting back. And if that happened, he never got it back, but he's going to be hoping for a caution. He doesn't want to go a lap down. It's a long lap, so he won't be going a lap down for a little while, but at this pace, he definitely will. Charles Sumner still leading the train. That includes basically the entire field. He's got Robert Besaw Jr. behind him. Besaw isn't really pushing Sumner, but he doesn't have any reason to right now. He's staying back just a little bit. He's not bump drafting him, maybe saving a little bit of fuel. maybe getting a little bit of temperature saved in that car. Doesn't want it to overheat with a little bit of air in front of him. And Rondeletto behind them two, hanging back quite a bit as well. It's very interesting to see these drivers taking it so easy this early on, but it's a 95-lap race, so can you really blame them?
And they're clicking another one of those laps off, and they're going to go through a lot of these in a hurry, and pit stops may come up on us quicker than we expected. You mentioned a little while ago that there's 17 cars in the lead pack right now, and the biggest move of them, by the way, one driver who didn't qualify was Taylor Stout. He was on a mission though when the green flag dropped, because he went straight up from 21st and into 10th position, and the field has been single file for most of the race, so he probably got that done within a lap or two.
Yeah, great start from Taylor Stout, a great start for Matthew Long and Trent Dinkle and Pat Harvey. Lots of drivers really took advantage of that kind of jumbled start. A lot of drivers on the bottom really took advantage from the bad start on the top. Couple drivers running a little bit higher. Rondeletto and Besaw, they both took a shot up to the higher lane, maybe just to get a little bit of air on the nose. There goes Besaw again doing it.
Yes, so 17 cars in the lead pack. You see 4 drivers working together not too far back of them, so they'll be able to maintain their momentum and keep out of trouble. Even though it's single file running for the leaders now, that's not necessarily going to last the entire race. Although that being said, if for whatever reason it does, if we get to a green flag pit stop, you are probably going to want to be in this lead pack, because this pack could definitely break up if we do get green flag pit stops. These drivers all have 4 sets of tyres, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see some drivers opt to definitely not use all 4 sets.
Hearing that, unfortunately, Chris Hudson, it was a disconnection, and somehow he ended up in the grass in turn 4, but no yellow came out for him, so he's kind of floundering around in the back, unfortunately. You see Michael Witt there as well, and Aaron Self struggling, and here is the pack chasing down the lapped car, Chris Hudson. Luckily, they're single file, so it'll be very easy for Hudson to get out of the way. But this is going to be the first time that these drivers have had anybody on the outside of them for a while.
Yeah, Cassette has not made it back out onto the racetrack, so all 24 starters that we did have are still out there on the lead lap, but obviously some of them a bit closer to the front than others, but they're all still in this race, because the fact, even if we do get 1 or 2 cars go a lap down, I'm fairly certain we're going to have a caution at some point, and they'll be able to get a wave around and get back on the lead lap. I have a feeling we're getting word that some drivers are unhappy with their engine temperatures. Their cars are running a little bit too hot. They've got a little bit too much tape on the grill. I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of the reasons why we see a bit of a calm start here. All the drivers are, just being a little bit conservative. Although we see a few of them trying to make a hard line work in turns 3 and 4. And maybe, once they have a couple of pit stops, they have an opportunity to take some tape off, get those temperatures down. Maybe we'll see a bit more aggressive driving as the race goes on. And of course, also, we'll probably see more aggressive driving as the race goes on, because we'll be getting closer to the check-in.
Choo-choo, the High Line train is boarding, and a couple drivers have gone up there. Unfortunately, it looks like there's only about 3 of them. There's the teammates of Scotty Johnson and Pat Harvey, and Trent Dinkle has joined them up there as well. And Waldo Walden's up there too. They've got about 4 cars, and they've got some momentum up there. But is 4 cars going to be enough to overcome the speed of the 13 on the bottom? Not entirely sure, and they're not doing the best job of staying close together there. Is that Mark Kalin going to the top? Yes, it is. Suddenly it's time to go to the top. Maybe Mark Kalin wants to lead. And they're going to reach Chris Hudson momentarily, and they are going side by side, so it's going to be maybe a little bit worrying once they get by him. Will he go to the middle? Will he go to the top? There he is. He's at the top of your screen. He's like a little fish, and he's got a pack of whales, a pack of killer whales coming down the straight. ready to absolutely devour him. He's going 233. Charles Sumner's going 243. We'll see if he slots through the middle nice and easy, though.
Yeah, so this is definitely going to be interesting seeing what happens when they catch a lap number 43 car, Chris Hudson here. I've got to imagine Chris will want to get out of the way of the pack. He knows that he's kind of a sitting duck and just going to be an obstruction for them. The racetrack is plenty wide for him to find somewhere to run and let them go by. Hopefully he communicates with them nicely enough. So we are getting some cars trying to group together up high. A bit of a three-wide scenario there. That's definitely not the fastest way around. But they're not very organised. And also I think they need to get a little bit lower. They need to try and work a side draft a little bit, because if you wander all the way up a racetrack, you're just making the circuit too long, and that's not going to gain you any time at all. And right now, nice props to the outside line for trying, but they haven't made anything happen yet. But here we go. They're gathering together a little bit better here as they work by Chris Hudson, who's opted to go quite high, which is exactly where you want to see lap cars go, to be honest, to get up there all the way. And out of the leader's way. So thanks to Chris for doing that. So let's see if a Highline can group and make something happen here. They're definitely looking more organised now.
And Mark Kalin ditched him. He went back down to the bottom when he saw a hole, so he didn't think there was much worthwhile to do up there. But the new leader of the top line is actually Taylor Stout. And now Robert Besaw Jr. goes up there. Taylor Stout tries to ditch him, leave him up high. And it's getting squirrely. I don't think Taylor Stout's particularly happy about that decision to move up to the top, but Robert Besaw Jr. wants the lead from Sumner, and I think Sumner might want to lose the lead. He's been leading the entire race so far, and he's going to be using way more fuel than every single other driver in the race because they're in the draft.
Yeah, but one nice thing about leading this race is you're in the least chaotic position unless someone gets into your rear quarter panel. But yeah, like you say, we saw a bit of a chop there last lap between two cars up on the high side, and that kind of functions up on the high side. Unfortunately, though, these drivers were smart enough to all get it sorted without too much drama. So here we go. They were delayed momentarily, but now they're going to try and regroup and see if they can make anything happen against the leaders. Charles Sumner now being followed by Octavio Bondaletto. So let's see if Octavio does the same thing. If a Highline starts to get a run, will that number 48 abandon Charles and he'll try and lead the top side? I'll tell you this though, ever since we saw that move, the top side is not going as fast now as what it was when Stout was leading them.
Yeah, Robert Besaw Jr., he's absolutely parked the bus in front of the train, and he's slowing him down a ton. They were about equal with the leaders a couple laps ago, and they're just absolutely plummeting back. Patrick Cowgill is about equal with them, which is for like 11th place. So these guys falling back quite a bit. Robert Besaw Jr., maybe not the best car in clean air or the best car to lead a pack. He's going to try and fit into one of the gaps on the bottom. Taylor Stout is too, and Taylor goes down right in front of Matthew Long, his teammate, and they're going to try and work together maybe a little bit later. I don't think this experiment worked out.
Yeah, well, I think, like you say, Taylor's probably not too pleased with the move by the 3 car there. I mean, there's nothing the 3 did wrong, but Taylor seems to have a very fast car. We mentioned before that move that he was the biggest mover so far on the race. And I mean, he's still running just outside the top 10 right now after starting 21st. So he's still one of our bigger movers in the event. I think he just wanted to get by the 3, and maybe now he's done that, he'll try and regroup with a couple other cars and see if they can make a Highline work again.
Hearing that Sumner may come in at about lap 35, potentially. So a couple more laps to go before he decides to come in, or anybody else decides to come in. We know he'll have to come in the earliest compared to anybody else because he's the leader. We'll see when everybody else comes in. There's Robert Besaw Jr. in the very right side of your screen. He's going all the way to the back here. Ooh, 519 is Joao Guerra stuck in the middle. Are they lapping him? I think they might. No, they're not lapping him. He's just fallen back quite a bit.
Yeah, he got stuck there, it looks like, in what we like to call the sucker hole. And some drivers, you know, I've heard aerodynamically it's not a very nice place to be, but sometimes when you get stuck in the middle of a pack like that, you may just want to drop back. You know, you might be quite happy going along down low or up high, but now all of a sudden I'm 3 wide, I don't have any momentum. Maybe he lifted a little bit, just said, okay, I'm not in a good spot, let's get out of this, let's get to the back, I'll regroup and try and make my way back up in front again. Now we expect pit stops within the next 10 laps, and with the lap times clicking off at about 45 seconds a lap, that's not too far away, so I wouldn't be surprised if we do that we are seeing some moves now for drivers to try and gain track position before the first round of stops kicks off. But in about 10 laps or so, they're all going to want to try and be single file.
Whoa, down to the bottom goes Besaw finally. That was opportunistic, but he saw the hole and he went for it. He brings himself back down to the bottom, and now the top line just peppered with a few cars. I see the 2 James Bird Racing cars up there, and now everybody's going up there. Patrick Cowgill, he can't quite decide where he's trying to go. He decides to stick to the bottom. Abner Acosta sticks to the bottom, but a couple cars have jumped up right in front of the James Bird Racing cars. And who are they led by? Robert Besaw Jr.
Yeah, but we saw that didn't work earlier, so let's see if he can encourage anyone to kind of pull up in front of him and see if they can lead that train up on the high side. Now, another thing is, if our fuel window is about 30 to 35 laps, and on a technicality, the first pit window is open, you do risk getting trapped lap down if you opt to short pit here. But the problems you run into, of course, are first off, you don't want to short pit too much in case it does go green to the end, but you get a green-white checkered, that might put you at a bit of a fuel disadvantage. And secondly, I'm pretty sure you want to try and pit with a partner.
And if we're looking at the speeds of the drivers in this lead pack, let's look at Ron DeLetto in second. He's running about 240 down the front straight, maybe up to 245 all the way at the end. But drivers that aren't in the pack, Michael Witt, Aaron Self, they're only running 230. So they're about 5 to 10 miles per hour off every lap. So if you pit on your own, are you just going to be nowhere to be found once everything cycles through?
Yeah, possibly, but again, the nice thing is we don't have a whole lot of cars 1 lap down right now. As a matter of fact, we only have 1 car a lap down. Michael Witt and Aaron Sell may join him soon, may join Chris Hudson soon a lap down. But if we do get some late cautions, they'll easily be able to get the wave around, because it's not like you have to have tyres here.
So the line for lap 26, riding on board with Aaron Self. He lets the field by. There goes everybody. Ooh, a little bit close with Dinkle, but that's just what happens when you got 2 rows of cars trying to lap someone on the outside. No harm, no foul. Drops to the back, and he'll try and hang on to the draft at the back if he can. I think Chris Hudson was able to. Yeah, Chris Hudson's still in the draft, and he's a lap down. So hopefully Aaron will be able to hang around with them too. Now, Robert Besaw Jr., he's not quite the rock he was last time he tried this. They've got a little bit of momentum going up on the high side. Mark Kalin with a little bit of a peak. He's not going to go up there. They're moving a little bit. They're motoring up front. Still 4 cars behind the leader, but they've got more momentum than they ever have up on the top side.
So I've been looking at the bottom line. We see Charles Sumner leading, of course, and Octavio Rondoletto in second place. Elliott White in third place has been giving Octavio a little bit of space, and he's also been trying to get a bit of fresh air. Let's not forget that Elliott White was one of the drivers who blew up in qualifying, so I almost wonder if he's trying to keep his engine a little bit cool. Maybe he'll be one of the drivers making a tape adjustment under this first stop.
Well, as we cross the line for lap 28, we're approaching a third of the way through the race. Pit stops will be coming in about 4 or 5 laps time, most likely. So while we wait for that, we're going to throw to a quick break, see some videos from our sponsors and from iRacing. And when we come back, we hope you'll be with us too. See you in a couple minutes. Welcome back to iRacing Superspeedway. You didn't miss a thing in that short break, but pit stops will be coming in the near future. We saw that top line kind of fall apart on side by side. Everybody's single file again. Robert Besaw Jr. fell back about 49 spots, and the leader Charles Sumner comes in, and here comes just about half the field.
Oh, I got a couple of drivers locking up. Oh, one car passing across. That's the 84. He's collected another vehicle. Of course, that won't bring out a caution because it's in the pits.
Unless the admins throw a caution, but it doesn't look like they will. Waldo's out of the car. Joao Guerra's out of the car. No caution for that.
And Baron Hilton, another driver involved in the 47. There he is.
Heartbreak for those cars. Joao Guerra was not involved. Forgive me for that. He was just on the radio. We'll see if we can get a replay of that. But wow, just too hot on the brakes, or do you think he had his brake bias cranked back to help out for something?
Yeah, that's a possibility. You know, you don't want to have too much front brake because then you just lock the fronts. But if you have too much rear brake, could spin out. And well, we'll find out exactly what happens here with the replay. The leaders just went, the rest of the leaders just went by pit road, and not many of them came down. The 84 coming in too hot, and that's too much front brake. Oh, and he really ricocheted off a wall. That's an iRacing issue, honestly, more than a setup one. I mean, obviously the 84 still caused it.
Yeah, unfortunately, he got stuck on a gap in the wall. It looks like the difference between the safer barrier and the concrete wall, and he would have got a pit speed penalty and some damage either way, but that's unfortunate for Baron Hilton to get involved in. It's an absolute freak accident. You don't expect cars to land on you in the pit lane. But back to our leaders. Elliott White goes by. Did Rondoletto come in? Rondoletto's in. Octavio Rondoletto in the 48. He took over the lead after Sumner pitted, and he has made his pit stop, or he's crawling down pit lane to make his pit stop. Adam Zemke leaves pit lane. Everything's going off now.
Yeah, hits his pit stall nicely. We saw Aaron Self actually kicked off the pit stops while we ran the break. He was a lap down already, and he overshot his pit stall, which of course is horrible if you're already a lap down, because that meant he went 2 laps down. As we see more cars bouncing off a transition from the bank into the apron. Don't hit that inside wall. We saw one car heading that way. We already know that doesn't work.
Big lockup from White, but he did get it stopped. O'Brien, Kalen, Holly, Acosta, and Cowgill, the final group of drivers to pit. Now, while these guys pit, the important thing, it's going to be looking at Rondoletto. He's actually just exiting the pits now, but it is such a long pace lap that by the time he gets around, we'll have to see where he comes out legitimately. Everybody's taken 4 tires, it looks like, from the leaders. We'll see who comes out of the pits first. It's going to be a close one. Kalen, a fantastic pit stop, comes out in the lead. Elliott White still stuck in the box. What happened to him?
Oh, we think it might be a speeding penalty.
That's heartbreaking. I thought he got it slowed down, but I guess that lockup did not get him slowed down enough. Very unfortunate for Elliott White, leading the race. He's going to go a lap down or two. I think James O'Brien sped as well. He's also stuck in there. But here is Mark Kalen, your race leader. And if you look on your screens on the left side, Octavio Rondoletto is 4 seconds back. So these guys that stayed out, it really worked out for them. But they've got Abner Acosta 2 seconds behind. And Rondoletto is catching because he's in the draft of Acosta. We got big drafts here with these giant wings. And he's got a couple cars to help him with Stout and Long and Harvey. Everybody's going to meet back together. We're a little bit separated out now, but give it a few moments and we'll probably have a pack again.
Yeah, Kalen was another one of the drivers who blew his motor during qualifying, so obviously was going for the pole. Still got the qualifier, decent ninth place. And when I saw how much of a lead these top three had, my initial reaction was, oh, they did 2 tires or they didn't do tires. No, Kalen took 4 tires. He was just able to get on and off pit road quite quickly.
And of course, O'Brien and White were ahead of Kalen, so I guess them being taken out of the equation really helped him to come out in the lead. He is lapping a car right now. Cannot quite tell who that is. There's multiple black cars in this race, and that one is James O'Brien. Heartbreaking for James O'Brien. He was up in the lead pack, and he still is, but the wrong way. But he's holding tough. He doesn't want to go a lap down.
Yeah, well, this is where oval blue flag rules are kind of just courtesy if you want to let the drivers find you by, whereas on road courses it's more of a requirement. James O'Brien is under no obligation to let the leaders by, and so he stuck it, kept it down low. Mark Kalen gave him a little bit of help, and of course James O'Brien would like to stay on the tail end of the lead lap so that he doesn't have to use any special tricks. If a caution comes out, he can just run around the track real fast and catch back up with the leaders.
And Kalen and Holly and Cowgill are really happy to have him ahead too, because they can save fuel. We saw how Charles Sumner had to come in earliest because he led the first entirety of the first stanza of the race. So now Kalen can simultaneously lead and save fuel. Speaking of Charles Sumner, he's down in 11th place after being the first car to come into the pits. He is about in the middle of this next pack with Besaw and Harvey. They're all trying to work their way forward. They've got quite a few cars, so they'll have quite a bit of momentum. If you look carefully at the ticker on the left side of your screen, you see that gap coming down with every millisecond. They will hopefully catch the 4-car pack that leads the race, the 5-car pack now, maybe even a 6 or 7-car pack as Rondoletto and Long approach.
So we've got several cars a lap down now, actually. We've only got 17 cars left on the lead lap, including James O'Brien, who's only just on the lead lap. But that's obviously a bit of an issue for the drivers that are 1 lap down. They're not necessarily guaranteed to get the lucky dog if we do get a caution later on during this race.
This is Aaron Self in the car that kind of looks like an Eagles car. It isn't. O'Brien is going to get rid of him. But is Kalen going to go with Self here? No, Kalen's going to let Self be second. Self is 2 laps down. He's not in the fight for anything here.
No, this isn't smart because I don't think Self has the speed that James O'Brien did, and that's why we see these cars up on the high side now recognizing that and realizing, yeah, we don't want to slow down for this guy. They're just going to blast by Self, and now they're going to be leading the race. They're still behind O'Brien on track, of course, but now we have Abner Acosta leading the pack, and that's all because Kalen was willing to kind of help Self out, and Self just doesn't have the speed right now.
And who's Abner Acosta's teammate? It's James O'Brien. So they're working together. That's Trent Dinkle in the 501. He's not in the lead lap either. He's a lap down, so it's very interesting the amount of drivers that are just scattered throughout this pack that aren't actually fighting for the lead. They're all racing James O'Brien for track position, and they're all trying to get their laps back, but they've got quite a bit of work to do to get back up there. Abner Acosta is the leader on the bottom side. Taylor Stout is in second on the high side because those two cars around Acosta, those three cars around Acosta, are all a lap down.
Yeah, so that was actually a nice move there by Trent Dinkle to kind of use the momentum of the lead cars to get by. Well, he might have already been ahead of Elliott White, but still, the fact that he's ahead of Elliott White right now, of course, is critical because that means Dinkle was in pole position, if you will, to get the lucky dog. If we did get a caution. Again, though, James O'Brien continues to pace the field around, like you say, one of the private label teammates, and all this mixing up front here in the lead pack, which contains about 10 or 11 cars, but only 7 of which are actually on the lead lap fighting for the lead. That's allowing these guys in this second pack to kind of close in on them a little bit. This goes from 8th pack to 13th position.
And you saw that gap was about 6 seconds a couple laps ago. It's now only 4. But now that that front pack has quite a bit more in terms of cars, you can see them pull away a little bit. They have a lot more momentum than this 7-car pack back here. Everybody's going single file now. If you're this 7-car pack in the back, you really want these guys up front to start going side by side again and slow themselves down again, because right now they're pulling away.
Yeah, and the nice thing, I don't exactly know why O'Brien is so far back, but he's a private label team car. Obviously, the private label team cars are probably running very similar, if not identical, setups to each other. I'm sure it's a very fast one that some of the lesser established teams may be a little bit envious of. So James O'Brien, even though he's on the tail end of the lead lap, has a lot of speed, and I'm pretty sure these drivers don't mind just following him around right now. He's burning up the fuel for them. He's pulling them along at 240. Actually, I want to get an exact number on this before he heads into turn 1. 245 miles an hour. He was topping out of that before they got into the corner.
And remember, James O'Brien was up here legitimately, but he got that pit speed penalty, and that's why he's been pretty much demoted to the back of the lead lap, demoted to being the whipping boy, the drafting boy at the front of the pack, giving everybody a free draft. It's not helping him at all. Elliott White on the bottom. It looks like Trent Dinkle's falling back. Is he trying to move his way to the front? Maybe they're trying to let Elliott White lead and save both of these private label team hype cars some fuel.
So this second pack is being led by 3 teammates. Not sure how smart of an idea it is to have Robert Bashaw Jr. up front of this pack, considering we saw him struggling to pull a field along when he was leading the high line earlier. Oh, they caught the lap car itself in a real bad place there, really. That's going to cost them a lot of momentum, having to go up high like that. They'll get back down now, but they haven't really been able to gain as much time on the leaders. So I think Robert probably feels safe right now. You know, he's got 2 teammates behind him, but we saw how close those private label team cars were going down the straight. They were really able to draft off each other well. That's what these guys are going to have to do here. And they are doing it. Robert Basora is actually hitting 246 heading into turn 1 there, but there you go. They're getting 2 spread out in the corner, and then we ride on board Sumner, who is just going to take a position and lead the rest of the train through. So even though these guys hit 246 down the straight there, I'm not sure if they're as organised as the leaders, but I could end up eating my words because they are down to just 4.1 seconds behind the race leader now.
They got 50 laps to make up that gap, but there is going to be another pit stop in the question here in about 20 laps or so. We saw the first one on about lap 30-32, so we can assume the next one will be about twice that. So we'll see if these guys can meet back in the middle. through the pit stop or on track before the pit stop. We haven't seen that 3 next to Robert Besaw Jr.'s name, or yes we have, he's down below 4 seconds. The pack is moving forward, but is it fast enough is the question.
Very soon about to hit the halfway point on the technicality. Lap 47.5 is when we'll be halfway. And so we'll be there in, well actually, yeah, we'll get there in about half a lap's time. And total lap's time of this race so far has been 35 minutes 44 seconds. So a little over another half an hour of racing left for these guys if they can keep it clean and green. And so far it looks like it's going to stay green for a little while because it's all single file. The closest we've really had to drama so far today is obviously on pit entry. Now, no one tried to play any kind of tyre games under the first set of pit stops. My guess is that's because they didn't want to risk being the only driver to not take tyres or to take 2 tyres and be without a drafting partner out there. But I wonder if we'll see anyone kind of gamble on the second round of stops or if they do really need to have tyres for manoeuvrability if everyone chooses to take 4 tyres when they come in for the second round of green flag stops again, which should happen in about 10 to 20 laps.
That second pack is catching, even though they kind of fell apart. I thought they kind of looked like a pack of 4 and 3 instead of a pack of 7. But whatever they're doing, it seems to be working because that gap is now down below 3.5 seconds. So either Pat Harvey's doing a great job pushing or something is really working out. Maybe O'Brien's stacking up this front pack. Either way, it is absolutely working out for these drivers. We thought they might let Elliott White lead the race up front, but it hasn't been the case. He's still sitting in 3rd, and O'Brien is the one leading the pack. Here's the lap differences between Acosta, the leader of the lead pack, and Besaw, the leader of the second pack. Besaw is faster, but is it enough?
Yeah, no, this is actually pretty good drafting going on between these teammates up the front here, the number 3 of Besaw and the number 67 of Harvey. I do think Harvey's deserves a lot of credit for that, because when he is able to get right on the rear bump of Besaw, that picks up their speed by a couple of miles an hour, and he's able to do it at the end of the straight here. It kind of gives a little bit of an extra turbo boost to the number 3. And sure enough, now it's only 2 seconds back. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Besaw's already starting to feel a little bit of the toe off the pack in front of him.
Besaw hits 243 at the end of the back straight. Not quite as high as the 246 we've seen before, but the gap between him and Long, 1.7 seconds. I think about 1.5 is about where the draft starts to happen. When you've got a group of cars working together, maybe 1.7 will actually be the magic number. But either way, I think he will be leading that second group into this first group. And then the question will be, do they use their momentum to go to the high side and sweep around the front group, or do they just tack on to the back of the pack?
Well, will be interesting. I don't think it'll happen this lap, maybe the next lap, as if we see new fastest lap of a race. Robert Besaw Jr. It will appear in purple at the top of our screen on our GSRC graphics if it happens, and that'll tell you that he's really starting to get around. But it's obviously coming. There's nothing the lead pack can really do to prevent it. They are going to catch him. A 44.0 that time around for Besaw. That's a very quick time around here. And I think it's going to get even quicker as he starts to feel the toe of that pack in front of us. It was interesting. I compete in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, and in our league chat, one of the drivers who competes is Sage Karen, and he was explaining how one thing that iRacing needed to work on, this was a couple of years back, they've worked on it since, was the draft in the IndyCar. He said that in real life, if you can see an IndyCar in front of you, you can feel the toe from it. Now, I don't know how different that is from a cup car, but I wouldn't imagine if it's not too different, considering how aerodynamically dependent these cars are dependent nowadays. But that was quite surprising to me that, that if you can see a car, you're getting a toe from it, kind of gives you an idea of how effective, how critical that is to this kind of racing.
1.4 seconds between Long and Bissau. I'd say they're definitely in the bubble now, but this is going to be the crucial next couple of laps. Now that they've got the draft, what can they do with it once they close in? In about 5 laps time, we might see our first pit stops. Might be a little bit early with fuel going to lap 35. So I would assume drivers would want to make that last stint maybe a little bit shorter. So they might go to 65 or so, but we'll have to see. Down to 1.2 seconds. They're coming.
Yeah, I was giving Bissau a bit of, we got one car just shot up a racetrack in the lead pack. I know he did it intentionally to kind of cool his equipment, but that's going to help that second pack, actually, because now they're going to be even closer to that lead pack, and they've caught him now. Let's see, is there a new fastest lap for Bissau? Oh, it didn't happen that time around.
I tell you what, I don't think Kalen did that on purpose. He hit the apron on entry, maybe just a loss of focus behind a train of cars, and he hit the apron, and he was lucky there was nobody on the outside because he absolutely shot up the track about 5 or 6 lanes. Lucky he was able to get it back down to the bottom before that second group caught up to them. But now the second group isn't the second group. It's just one group from about 1st to 13th.
Yeah, well, if it goes green to the end, we'll get a very interesting finish, because it pretty much took a whole green flag run for that second pack to run down the lead pack. So if we have something similar like that watching the third stint of this race, we'll get a grandstand finish. Yeah, I was starting to compliment Bissau there, saying, he wasn't really doing a good job of pulling the high lane around early on in the race, but now here we go. He's really showing he has pace, capturing the lead pack at like 1 to 2 to 3 tenths a lap, and I was really starting to look forward to what he could do when he caught this pack, but he's doing nothing. He's kind of just settling in behind him. He's probably trying to save fuel, actually. He probably burned a lot of fuel trying to catch this pack down, and now he needs to kind of make up for everything that he's lost in that regard.
Crossing the line to start lap 58. We're approaching 2/3 of the way through the race. It's Abner Acosta in the lead, Bradley Holly in second, but they've got a couple lapped cars between them. James O'Brien, not a lap down, but he will be a lap down if these guys get by him. Then Elliott White is up there as well, in between Acosta and Holly. Everybody saving fuel now, we're hearing, especially the Whateback Racing team. They want to save fuel. They have no reason to make passes, and this will probably be the case until we get to the next pit stop.
Yeah, which is probably less than 10 laps away. Now again, it got spread out over the course of 3 or 4 different laps the first pit window. I wouldn't be surprised if we see something similar this time, but remember, you don't really want to come in on your own. But that being said, you also don't want to come in a massive pack, because then you've got lots of potential for running over other cars or getting run into. The private label teammates trying to do a little bit of front drafting down the back straight. It's only getting them up to 245 miles an hour, and obviously isn't going to really break them away from the rest of the pack though. So I don't know how effective that really is.
I like how we're saying only 245 miles per hour. Like that's just some random number.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm on a Boeing 747 going to England and it's only doing 240 miles an hour, I'm going to be disappointed.
That's exactly right. They're saving fuel in the air, cutting the engine to save fuel, going 100 miles per hour in the air. There might be some airlines that do that, but we won't talk about them.
Yeah, we need to bring something like Concorde back. I think they are planning on bringing some kind of supersonic jet back soon.
Probably some billionaire SpaceX program or something or other. Now the 07 of Scotty Johnson is falling back on the back of this train. The gap to him and Sumner, it's about 9/10 of a second, so he's in the draft. But that's quite a big bubble of air between those two cars.
Yeah, we've got time in scoring on the left-hand side of your screen, but let's give a shout-out to the drivers the 13 drivers who are still part of this lead pack right now are Abner Costa, Bradley Holly, Patrick Cowgill, Taylor Stout, Octavio Rondaletto, Matthew Long, Mark Kalen, Robert Basor Jr., Pat Harvey, Charles Sumner in 10th place, followed by Scotty Johnson, Brandon Walter, and Driel Guerrera. If we go green to the end, one of those names will likely be the race winner, and here come pit stops.
Quite early, I would say, but that's Besaw, Dinkle, and Pat Harvey in the pits. The first cars to come in. They had to fight so hard to make up that ground again, and now I guess they're happy to try and do that again.
So this is 33 laps to the end. It's a bit earlier than you want to be in.
See how they shuffle out. We'll see if O'Brien and Acosta and the gang maybe decide to come in this time. Do they have to cover off those other drivers? Absolutely not. They're still happy to keep going.
Yeah, no, I think it's too early to get to the end, especially if you have a green-white checkered.
And when stuff gets crazy, after I'd say we've been calm for the first 63 laps, but maybe when we get into the last 10 laps of the race, when it's really going to be the time to make your moves if you want to win this race, would not be surprised if something led to a green-white checker, so you want as much fuel as you can get in the car. This is the number 16 of Michel Gagnon. You just saw him on your screen. He is in the pits. He's been stuck quite a far bit behind the pack, unfortunately. He's been all on his lonesome, and I think that's one of the most boring things you can do in iRacing, to drive in iRacing Superspeedway without the draft. Oh, that's not boring from Charles Sumner. Locks it up. Hopefully he didn't speed.
It looked like he got it wound up in time there. Yeah, to go back to the thing about Gagnon, I think he did find a couple of lap cars to kind of run with. But again, he was about 30 seconds back of lead pack, so not exactly where he wants to be. I'm sure he'd like to find those lap cars to run with again when he comes out of the pits and try and keep himself on the lead lap. These are still very early final stops. Like lap 62, 63, you're still pushing it. Really going to have to do some fuel saving if it goes green. And again, we mentioned right at the top of the show, this isn't exactly a track where you want to be told, hey, you got to save fuel. Yeah, you can save fuel in a draft, but every lap that you're short is 3 miles of fuel that you've got to save.
Charles Sumner in the 98, we just saw him pit. He says he's good to the end. He has enough fuel in the tank to make it. So does that mean everybody else is going to have to come in here to cover him off? Is he even going to have any momentum? Well, as I say that, here comes O'Brien and Acosta. That was close for the Costa getting on the brakes. Close to the back of O'Brien. Rondaletto locks it up. Difficult braking on pit lane all day, it seems.
Yeah, well, it's a smart thing to do when you're coming in like that. It's kind of fan out side by side, so that if you do have different braking zones or different braking markers, you don't run into the back of a car in front of you. I think there's a certain Finnish driver who might have wanted to have taken a note on that earlier today.
Still a couple drivers out front. Cowgill, White. White's not leading, but White is the first car, not a lap down, and here he comes. Here comes White. Here comes Holly.
Very
what
late.
A racing gang.
Yeah, White did not get it slowed down in time. I think he might have a speeding penalty to serve here.
That would be his second speeding penalty of the day. So I think he needs to either have a talk with his crew about those brake temperatures, about those brake pressures, or he needs to slow it down a little bit. But Bradley Holly comes in. Mark Kalin comes in. We'll see how everybody fans out here. Abner Acosta is leaving the pits now. He's followed by James O'Brien. Will Acosta let O'Brien lead the way here? No. O'Brien sticks behind Acosta here. We'll see if maybe he lets him get back onto the lead lap in a few moments, but right now, Acosta needs a pusher.
Coming out of the pits now is 5:19. Actually, I think he's coming back into the pits. So 5:19 of Raul Guerra. As he left his pit stall from his pit stop, he lit up the rear tyres and put it in the wall on pit road. And so I think he's had to come back in for repairs.
Well, that's embarrassing from Joao Guerra. I don't believe he was in the lead pack, so it doesn't seem like he's lost too much, but he's going to come into the pits, fix that car, and hopefully get as many points as he can. Remember in the Precision Racing League that every position matters for points. And here's James O'Brien getting ahead of Acosta, ahead of his teammate. He's still a lap down, but he's going to try and maybe pull Acosta up to the front here. And the front is Bradley Holly and Mark Kalin. They have jumped Acosta and O'Brien and just about everybody else.
Here in the 31 of Patrick Cowgill overshot his pit stall or missed his pit box, so that's going to be costly because he was up there in that lead pack.
I still see him in 5th place, but I don't know if he's going to have to come down pit road again, unfortunately. P1 and P2, they have a tire advantage. They took tires later than the others. It was only about a lap, but Charles Sumner's tires are 4 laps old. Johnson Besaw, 6 laps old. So there is quite a tire difference, but there's also quite a bit of a gap difference. Robert Besaw Jr., 6.6 seconds behind the lead now.
Yeah, I think I misread the message here. I think Patrick was trying to slow down to get on pit road, and he had to basically abort it, basically do a race car, a racing driver's version of a pilot doing a go-around, where he realized, okay, I'm not going to make the airstrip. I need to put the throttle back up to 100% and try again later.
Now is when things are probably going to start to get a little more interesting. This is the final stanza of the race. There's no more pit strategy. There's not much fuel that needs to be saved. Some people do need to save more than others, but this is when you're going to have to make your move if you want to win this race. Here's the James Byrd Racing cars of Long and Stout going around Brandon Walter. They've got Chris Hudson with them as well. Unfortunately, Chris is a lap down after that early incident, but the 3 James Byrd Racing cars working together. They've got quite a bit of a gap they need to make up. It's about 4.5 seconds, but we've seen that it is possible to make that up.
Yeah, and I hate doing this again. Again, to clarify on Patrick, he had actually served his pit stop without issue. The reason he was going slow on the front straight, he didn't have a drafting partner, so that's why he was slower than normal. So we've got 2 different sets of teammates working together up front here. We've got Abner Acosta leading the race. Yeah, Abner Acosta leading the race, and he's working with his teammate, James O'Brien. And then, of course, we've got the drivers in 2nd and 3rd positions, Bradley Holly and Mark Kalin. But the advantage Acosta has here, of course, is that the driver behind him, he knows he doesn't mind running the 2nd place because he's not up there fighting for the win.
Now, I wonder how the Whataback Racing drivers feel about this. The fact that there's a lapped car helping out the leader, and the leader is his teammate. So it's part of the strategy, but I can imagine they might be a little bit maybe questioning what's going on up front, but can you blame them? I don't think you can. And they've got 2 teammates as well, so they can maybe blow their way by in the near future, falling back just a little bit. And speaking of teammates, the James Byrd Racing trio, they've caught Cowgill and Rondoletto, and they're just going to fly past on the bottom, easily up to 4th and 5th and not 6th, but they'll be up in the front shortly, I think.
Yeah, but I think the advantage Abner Costa has with those 4 cars up front is he knows that his teammate is not going to fight him for the win, whereas Holly and Caitlin, they might need to talk it out over the radio. Oh, Chris Hudson, fastest lap 43.3, that's a fast time. So congrats to him. Unfortunately, he's a lap down. There's a second pack. They're obviously going to be carrying a lot of speed, probably a lot more speed than the lead pack because there's more cars in this pack. So hopefully we'll get a repeat of the second stint here where we have 2 different packs right now, but at the end of the race they'll basically form a Pangea, massive landmass, massive pack of cars, and we'll get a good little race to the end, providing of course everyone has enough fuel to get to the end.
We heard Charles Sumner was good to the end, and he was the second earliest driver to pit, so we know he'll be good. But will Pat Harvey be good? Will Robert Besaw Jr. be good? That is the question. And unfortunately, they're nowhere near the draft. They're nowhere near the pack, so they might be completely screwed about 9 seconds back.
It's interesting to see how the team cars, the teammates have kind of all been able to group and get up front here today. I always thought of this iRacing Superspeedway as an unpredictable racetrack, even for Superspeedway, but obviously these guys have been able to get their act together and find out ways to work with each other, work the traffic, and we're seeing the cream rise to the top. Now, of course, that all might go out the window in the last 20 laps when everyone starts fighting for themselves in the closing laps, but right now, it seems to be working.
2.5 seconds is now the gap from the first pack to the second pack. That's going to come down in a matter of moments. They've already made up about 0.6 in one lap. If we can see a lap comparison between Kalen and Long, Long has just been absolutely flying at the front of this second pack. 2.4 seconds now. Mark Kalen gets out of line a little bit. That's Elliott White at the back of this 5-car lead pack. He's a lap down, but they kind of want him to be up front, or he just wants to push somebody, help somebody out, help his Whataback Racing teammates.
Yeah, I should mention it's a nice job by Kalen to get back up there, considering we saw him in that second stint drop to the back of a lead pack after getting on the apron and shooting up the racetrack. It almost looked like a right front tyre going down, to be honest, when it happened, but obviously that wasn't the case. And yet here he is after the final round of pit stops, hopefully the final round of pit stops, and he's up in third place. Obviously a nice pit cycle there for him. We'll see if he's able to turn it into a good finish in less than 20 laps time.
Bradley Holly really giving James O'Brien the business down the straight. He's not quite pushing the pusher, but he's pushing the pusher who was pushing the pusher, but it's not the pusher of the pusher right now. Either way, he's trying to make sure they have as much momentum up front as possible because he can see the gap on his relative. He knows the team's telling him what's going on here. Matthew Long, Taylor Stout, Brandon Walter, the whole gang is coming. And Brandon Walter is a teammate of Acosta and O'Brien. So that's going to be another team car helping out the Whataback Racing or the private label team hype team.
Yeah, you can see on timing and scoring, we're going to have 10 cars actually fighting for the win of this race in a moment. Abner Costa, and here they arrive. Abner Costa, oh, there we go, nice move by Matthew Long straight away, not wasting any time around the back of the lead pack. He's going to go straight for it. So the 10 cars are Abner Costa, Bradley Holly, Mark Kalin, Matthew Long, Taylor Stout, Brandon Walter, Charles Sumner, Scotty Johnson, Patrick Calgill and Octavio Rondeletto. And now they are all going to be on top of each other with lap cars intertwined as well, as we got one car going down to the apron at the back there. Here we go for the first time in about 50 laps, 2 different lines of traffic going down the front straight here at the iRacing Superspeedway.
Mark Kalin ditched, or Bradley Holly ditched Mark Kalin to go to the high side. Now Mark Kalin joins him back up there, and they switched around. Mark Kalin takes the lead. Bradley Holly's going to come with him. The top line really working out. They're going to bring Matthew Long with them as well. They're all going to be clear. The top 3 To the bottom, no. Long stays high. Long stays high with his teammate Taylor Stout, but the Whataback Racing cars of Mark Kalin and Bradley Holly take the lead.
Yeah, and as that merge of the first two-pack happened, the three drivers who were kind of left out are the three kind of just standing out at the back of the picture there. Scotty Johnson, Octavio Randaletto and Patrick Cowgill, they may run the risk of losing this lead pack if these guys are fast enough.
Got to start working together. And we see a bunch of teams working together, but Octavio Rondaletto, he doesn't have a teammate. He's all alone on that Juncos Racing eSports squad. So he's trying to work with the SGE eSports car of Scotty Johnson and Patrick Cowgill, a little bit of a motley crew back there. Looks, oh, that is not going to help you at all going three wide. There's no momentum in three wide whatsoever.
Yeah, and also right around the time they were doing that, the lead pack was a little bit shuffled up and losing time as well. So they could have been trying to use that time to run them down. But here we go. The lead pack has gotten single file for a little while. I wonder if this is a strategic call to pull away from the three cars behind them. And as soon as I say that, they get spread out, fanned out a little bit down the back straight. Working lap number 81, so 14 laps left to go when they cross the line.
Everybody staying single file here. It looks like it's helping Bradley Holly because he doesn't have to stay on the bottom. There's nobody on the top, so he can just run that high line, cool down the car a little bit. Matthew Long's trying to do the same thing, although that might be more of a strategy move because he brings his teammates with him.
And let's not overlook the fact here that these lap cars may try to race each other a little bit as well as help out their lead team cars, because James O'Brien right now is in the lucky dog position in 13th place, and he's going to want to hold on to that because we're so late in the race now that I don't think a caution would bring all the lead lap cars in, and so the only lap down car that would be eligible for getting a wave around would be the lucky dog, which again right now is James O'Brien in the red car there, the fourth car in line.
I think good news for Cowgill and Rondaletto and Johnson. It doesn't look like they're quite going to lose the draft. They're 1.4 seconds back. That's in the bubble, but they've got to make sure they are stuck together if they want to stay in the bubble and not lose it again. Kalin still leads. Holly second. The only cars on the top line are the James Bird Racing trio of Long, Stout, and Hudson, who's a lap down. They don't seem to have the momentum yet because they're all on their own. They need more cars up there to help them out. And the two Whataback Racing cars pulling away a little bit right now.
Had another retirement from the race recently. Chad Brown is out, so a little bit of attrition on the backside, on the front side. Still got 7 drivers racing over each other as they head on into turn 1, catching a lap car not too far ahead of them.
And Aaron Self, the 18, his day's gone from bad to worse. He's had to pit again. He was 5 laps down. I think he may go a few more laps down, unfortunately. You see him in the Makita car, not an Eagles car. He is on track, so he has got his pit stop done. But he's 5 laps down, and I don't think the leaders want to see him again.
Yeah, last car left running. The driver that they are going to see is Michael Gagnon here. Now let's see, is Michelle going to get up high and let them all go down by low? That's there's a bit of communication on the radio. I think that's what they're telling him what to do. But the number 16 doesn't give him a whole lot of room. And honestly, that's not a bad place to position his car right there. He's giving them the low line, while at the same time, by running in the middle of the track, he's minimising the time he loses. Unfortunately, he is going to lose, I think, a couple of positions to other competitors who are also running a lap down in that pack. Or 2 laps down he is now.
So we come to the line this time. 10 laps to go. When do you think they're going to have to make that move? When's going to be too late? When's going to be too early?
Well, if you're second, third, or fourth, you can wait until the last lap. It's big enough around here. There's 3 Mile Superspeedway, and obviously on iRacing, they don't throw cautions on the final lap. So you know, as soon as you take the white flag, you can be as aggressive as you want. Obviously, a nice bit of news for any car left on the lead lap to this point, racing for the championship, of course, as if they do get involved in a final lap incident. There's only 12 cars left on the lead lap now, so 12 will be the worst they would fall to. But as for the drivers at the back of this pack, well, they might want to start experimenting with about 2 or 3 laps left to go.
Bradley Holly.
Or now.
Ooh. Now they're moving.
Yeah, a bit earlier than I would have done it, but maybe they want to try a couple of things out.
Well, this is the James Bird Racing trio again. We saw them do this a little bit earlier, and it didn't really work out. But they are trying it again, and maybe they're trying to slow down the pack a little bit, bring Cowgill and Rondeletto and Johnson in there as well, make it much bigger of a fight than it is right now. They've got more momentum than they had last time. But it's not enough as we come to the line. 8 to go. Is Long going to be equal with O'Brien? No. He's still about 5 car lengths back from the leader.
8 laps left to go, so you can do the math. That's 24 miles, and they're going to go by in a hurry at 240 miles an hour, pretty much the average speed around here, providing that, of course, it stays green. We haven't seen a caution yet today, haven't really seen any close calls, despite coming into the pits, which hopefully we shouldn't have to worry about anymore. But then again, it hasn't been the final 10 laps yet. Things actually get single file here. It looks like that slight excursion up to the high line was able to gain that team a few extra positions, but now they're going to take a break, filter back in line a little bit as they come across the line. 7 laps left to go.
Patrick Cowgill's getting tantalizingly close to the draft, but every time he does, he loses it again. Every time the front pack goes side by side, we get 2 lanes to slow them down. They go back to single file, and Cowgill falls back again. So he and Rondeletto definitely going to be frustrated. Scotty Johnson absolutely plummeting off the back of them. We probably won't see much of him anymore. I think he might be having maybe some fuel problems, but maybe they're just waiting. We're hearing that the SG eSports squad of Johnson and Harvey and Besaw, they're waiting. Maybe they're trying to work together. Maybe that's why Johnson's falling back. He's trying to join up with his teammates and move back up forward.
Bradley Holly in second place. Sorry. Yep, no, Bradley Holly in second place keeps sticking his nose out a lot to try and cool that radiator down. I'm wondering if he's waiting for the final lap, if he can try and get that engine cool enough where he can pretty much just tandem his teammate Mark Kalin away from the pack. I'll have to see if that works. Mark hit the bump entering turn 3 there at a bad angle, shot him up the racetrack a little bit.
Remember, he did that a couple laps ago too, even worse. Caught the apron and drove up the track about 7 lanes. He can't be doing that again, because that's going to be a one-way ticket to the back of the pack. 5 laps to go. We've done 90. Now there's only 5. 15 miles left. And these are going to be the ones that count. There's no lap traffic that's going to scare anybody. Cowgill trying to move forward still. Johnson, Harvey, and Besaw stuck together. But the pack that is probably going to be fighting for the win is on your screen right now. Charles Sumner at the back of it. The 2 Whataback Racing teammates, Mark Kalin and Bradley Holly at the front. There's 3 cars from James Bird Racing. There's 3 cars from private label Team Hype. Which team's going to come out on top? Good question.
Yeah, and even though we're not capturing any lap cars, remember that not everyone in this pack is racing for the win. Being led by James O'Brien there in the red number 9 machine, he's 1 lap down, but obviously he's got teammates to help out, and he's going to do the best he can to try and get his teammate to the lead first place. And right now we've only got about 3 minutes of racing left if it stays green, so think of your favourite song, and by the time you finish singing it, this race will be over. But I think you do, want to give that Son idea a pass, though, and just enjoy the action that we're about to see, because I think things are really about to start to kick off here.
Holly finally decides he needs to get to the bottom for the entirety of the straight. Not gonna cool that engine down any further. He's got it as cool as it can be. Under 10 miles to go. James Bird Racing on the high side. We've seen them up there about 5 times, and they've just come back down, and now there goes Private Label Team Hype to the top. O'Brien and Acosta getting wiggly. That was a bit of an aggressive push from the teammate, but he didn't turn his other teammate, and now they're trying to tandem their way to the front. They think it's late enough that this is when they need to make the move. Kalen pulling away quite a bit from the leader. Holly trying to side draft the 2 Private Label Team Hype cars. But the 2 Whataback Racing cars so stuck together. Kalen blocks.
Yeah, no. I was going to say there was a lot of damage to the back of Avino Acosta's car there. I wonder if that's from the tandem drafting on the back straight. But yeah, here we go. Private Label are doing a much better job of working together, and they're going to pull it off on the high side down the back straight with less than 2 laps left to go.
If we're going to get a caution, it's going to come here, because we're going to get the white flag next time by. The Private Label Team Hype cars have jumped their way to the lead, but James O'Brien isn't fighting for the win. Exiting turn 4, we're going to take the white flag, and the next flag will end it, which will be the checkered flag, no matter what happens. Can Holly and Kalen get back together here? Can the James Bird Racing trio do anything? Kalen to the high side, and he's got Holly behind him for one final push down the back straight. Super side draft from Kalen. Is it going to work out?
Yeah, this isn't good for Acosta. He's lost his drafting partner. James O'Brien is too far back, and now the teammates are going to be coming together right on his high side, and all Acosta can do is block, and that's going to cause an incident, and off into the grass it goes his competitor, but now we've still got the drag race coming out turn 3 and 4.
Mark Kalen out of the picture. It's down to Holly and Acosta. Is Acosta too far back to catch Holly? I think he is, about 7 car lengths back, and Bradley Holly wins iRacing Superspeedway, and they wreck the rest of the field behind him.
Yeah, so Holly and Kalen were trying to work together up on the high side, and Kalen kind of got the poor end of that, but Holly was able to maintain his momentum, get through without any contact, and that allowed him to bring home the checkered flag.
Fantastic stuff. It took him a while to get exciting, but they certainly delivered on the last lap. Bradley Holly, 17th to 1st, and we'll get a chance to talk to him in a few minutes. We're going to go to a break, and we'll have the entire top 3. See you then. Welcome back to iRacing Superspeedway. Quite the finish of this race, round 5 of the PRL NASCAR Cup Series. We're going to try and take a look at a replay of the finish if we can. If not, we'll take a look at the results first. Here is the replay. We're going to ride on board we're going to ride on board. We're going to watch what happened. This is the front straight. Nothing happened yet, but once we get to the back straight, that's when stuff goes crazy.
Yeah, so the two private label teammates end up getting broken up here, and Abner Acosta realizes he's a sitting duck, and he's just got a block. I don't know how well these guys get on well with each other, but I think it was a bit of a late block there on Acosta's part, but you had to realize it was going to come. That being said, obviously we saw a bit of drama break out behind, but Bradley Holly was able to see what was going on and find his way through. And then about fifth place here, they're running 3 wide across the line. They all make it across the line, but they don't bring their cars back to the garage in one piece.
Taylor Stout goes flipping and flying. The 27 runs into one of the Jamesburg racing cars after the line, but no harm, no foul. They finished the race, and everybody brought it home in the top 8. But the winning driver, I believe, is up, ready for interview. But first, we'll take a look at the results. This is the grid from the start of the race. Bradley Holly was the winner of the race, followed by Abner Acosta and Matthew Long runs at the top 3. Brandon Walter was in 4th, and Taylor Stout finished 5th. Charles Sumner, the pole sitter, only 6th. I say only, but that's still a solid result. Patrick Cowgill, Octavio Rondoletto couldn't get back in the draft. They're 7th and 8th. And Scotty Johnson and Mark Kalin round out the top 10.
Yeah, only had 10 cars on the lead lap at the end of that. Pat Harvey came home in 11th place ahead of Robert Basor Jr. and James O'Brien. Obviously, cars who were unable to complete the final lap would have been registered as 1 lap down. Chris Hudson finishes in 14th place. Now we get to the cars more than a lap down. Elliot White in 15th place. It's 2 laps down ahead of Trent Dinkel. Michel Gagnon down there in 17th ahead of Michael Witt. And now you start to get to the drivers who really have problems. Adam Zemke in 19th and Aaron Self in 20th, who was quite a bit off the pace today. Cars who made it nowhere near the finish: Chad Brown, Yoel Guerra, Baron Hilton, Waldo Walden, and Marc-Andre Cassette. Nicholas Hunter was in the session helping us out a bit today behind the scenes, so thank you, Nicholas.
Yeah, the used car lot back there. None of them brought it home, but somebody who did bring it home was Bradley Holly. 17th to 1st. 16 positions gained from qualifying to the race. We're going to try and get Bradley Holly as quickly as we can. Some technical difficulties on their side, I believe, but we'll get him in as quickly as we can. Here he is. Here's Bradley Holly, 17th to 1st, 16 positions gained. You survived that chaotic last lap. What was that like inside the cockpit on the last lap there?
Just a bunch of guessing. Long and them got a good run on us and made me fall back for a little bit, but at the same time, I was confident with having a teammate a lap down behind me and having Mark in front of me, that, me or Mark had a good chance of getting the win. But, that was insane. Once I saw Abner go for that block on Mark after our huge run, I had to dive it down, because if not, we were all going to wreck.
Now, for pretty much the majority of the race, for about 94 and a half laps, it looked like you guys were happy to run in single file, maybe save a little bit of fuel. Was that the strategy you came into this race expecting to do, just run single file until the last moment and then going at it?
Yeah, absolutely. During practice, we all realized that we could make it 31 laps, pushing as hard as we can. Now, sitting, in the middle of the field, that first before the first green flag stop, I was maybe 50% throttle for a majority of that time. So we saved a lot, and I basically gave our guys a target lap to hit each pit cycle, and we made it happen, and it worked out really well for us.
I'm being told in our chat to ask you if your lucky shirt helped.
I don't know, because last week it didn't. I got, sometimes it works, sometimes it does. It's just one of those shirts that I like to wear because it's thin and has the American flag, and I'm proud to be an American.
Well, it certainly worked out this week, and Next week, we go to Watkins Glen, as if you couldn't get more different from iRacing Superspeedway. We're going to a road course. How do you feel about that?
It's a road course. I love road courses. I race road courses for many years, so I always enjoy them, and it's Watkins Glen. I love that track.
All right, congrats on your win tonight, and good luck next week. You have anyone you want to thank before we kick you out of here?
Gotta thank the Wildback guys. We all worked perfect together tonight. And I'd like to thank you guys for broadcasting us week in and week out, and everybody in the PRL.
And thanks for putting on a show. And of course, we also thank the PRL for putting on such a great show. That was your winner, Bradley Holly. And the second place driver, not quite close enough in the end, Abner Acosta, is with Sam.
Yeah, Abner, it was a great race up until the final lap. It looked like you got separated from your teammate there. Did you kind of know that you were a bit of a sitting duck down there on the back straight? I got to imagine it felt that way.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, once I saw James sort of like lost draft with me on that 1 and 2, and I saw the gap, I already knew I was a sitting duck. So I tried for the block. I left that outside. Obviously my intent was to leave that complete outside lane open, but I looked at the replay. I don't know. I feel like maybe Mark took too long to make that decision. He would have just taken the outside and just blow past by me. And I see that Brad is also pushing him at the same time. So I don't know. I definitely did not want to touch those guys. But overall, a good finish for us. Second, and I think Brandon got third. Yeah, overall, good finish.
How important was it to have teammates running here today? Because honestly, I thought we would see a bit more of an unpredictable finish here, but it seemed like we saw teams running in tandems or packs together all race long, and it really helped having guys helping you out there.
Oh yeah, with this draft package, it's kind of hard to get it to make use of that outside line. So I was lucky to have James, even though he was like on a lap down pretty much. I was lucky to have him there at the front. But yeah, the most important part of the race was just making sure you don't get a penalty coming in, which is what happened to James, and making sure you go in with a pack so you're able to like stay in line and maybe create different packs and so. But yeah, teammates are super important here for sure.
Well, you weren't able to pick off a win today. Still got a decent finish out of it, second place. What are your goals heading into the last 4 events?
I know we have 2 road tracks, which I'm very strong at. So I'm definitely going to concentrate on those to try and see if I can catch the leaders. I think I have, I don't know, like a 15-point gap or something. So I definitely have to perform really strong in these 2 road courses. And then we'll see what happens at the end, because I think it's another super speedway. So it's definitely going to be fun. Everybody, it's really close in the points. It looks really good.
All right. Well, thanks for coming to talk to us, Abner, and we'll wish you a good night and congrats on your second place finish.
Thank you. Have a good night.
That was the second place finisher, Abner Acosta. And we've also got a third place finisher, Matthew Long. We saw him have a little bit of a tough moment crossing the line, but he did make it across the line before the calamity ensued. Matthew, congrats on your third place finish. We saw you working with your teammates. You guys were trying to make the high line work a bunch of times, but it didn't quite seem to work out. Do you think you needed more cars going up there with you early on?
Yeah, I think we needed probably one more good car up there and we could have made it work. But yeah, it was just a really good race. You mentioned my teammates, and I really got to thank them, Chris and Taylor, for all working together all race. And we actually pulled in Octavia too. You know, him being by himself, he came and helped us out as well. And we were able to all stay together, kind of stay protected, and work our way to the front. But yeah, unfortunately there at the end, we dropped Octavio, and I didn't realize it till too late. We couldn't catch him back up. We kind of needed him there if we were going to make that top line work.
And it was a third place finish in the end. Looked like Holly and Acosta were a little bit too far ahead to do anything there. But when you were crossing the line, I think you spun out as you crossed the line. What was that like inside the cockpit, and what exactly happened?
It's so wild at this track going 250 miles an hour. You really don't have time to make much for your decisions. So, yeah, at that point in time, I saw Brandon was getting a big run up top, and I went to kind of just block that, really. And he picked me up, and I think Taylor was behind him, and I got a huge run. And thanks to Brandon for pushing me there. He kind of pushed me to the point where I wrecked, but at that point, we were at the line, so it didn't really matter.
And then next week, we reach the second half of the season. Forgive me, I don't know what your points position is right now, but we've got half of the season to go. We've got 2 road courses, a couple big ovals. How are you feeling about the championship hunt for the rest of the season?
Yeah, feeling pretty good. Taylor finished 5th there, so from a team perspective, we're going to be right up in there. I know Private Label's going to have a couple points on us, but it's going to be super close. And then just for me, it's so tight up front. Every top 5 matters, every position matters the rest of the season. And, to be right up there in the hunt, it's going to be good. So looking forward to 2 road courses coming up. Felt like I'm pretty strong there, not as strong as maybe Abner, but been running strong there, so looking to make up some points as well.
And before we kick you out of here, you have anyone you want to thank for this 3rd place finish? I saw in the YouTube chat we had James Bird Racing and we had Linda Long, so maybe you want to thank them?
Oh, yeah. Thanks to my mom and all my friends and family watching. James Bird for putting together our sponsorship of Pebble Island Marina on Kentucky Lake, Tennessee there. And then you guys and PRL just for putting on the show every week. Appreciate it.
Thank you for putting on the show, for us to put on the show. That was your 3rd place finisher, Matthew Long. And I believe we'll have one more conversation. Mark Kalin, he only finished 10th, but he was as close as you can get to winning the race. Sam, talk to him.
Yeah, Mark, I'm sure you're a bit disappointed. I'll ask you straight up, what were your views on how things went down on that final lap?
Well, let me start by saying I'm not mad at Abner. I did the same thing to him the lap or so prior, blocking him on his run. So I fully expected that block coming. The only issue was I thought he was going to go to the wall, so I started to move, and then it looked like he started to open it up, so I started to move back, and Brad was pushing me the whole time, and then it just didn't work out. So fortunately, there were enough cars to lap down that I was able to come home with a top 10, but it stinks. It could have been my first PRL win, but I had a heck of a blast doing it.
Well, we appreciate you coming to talk to us and giving us your honest and also thoughtful opinion there on what happened on the final lap. Commiserations on the 10th place finish, but congrats on still getting the top 10, and we wish you best of luck at the last half of the season.
Thank you, fellas. Have a good one.
That was Mark Kalin, your 10th place finisher at the line.
And that about rounds out our interviews for today. Certainly an exciting finish and a long day at iRacing Superspeedway. Sam, any closing thoughts about what we saw today before we get out of here?
Yeah, well, I mean, 26 cars, or 25 starters rather, is a fairly big field here to have here at the iRacing Superspeedway, and I think we were all a little bit anxious about whether we would see a clean race or whether we would see a fair amount of carnage here today. And fortunately, we saw the former, at least until the very final lap, and that's just a product of this kind of racing that you're going to see incidents there. You heard from Mark, even he accepted the fact that, yeah, that kind of stuff happens on the final lap of these super speedway races. I think we definitely saw some great quality driving today, and congrats to Bradley for getting it done at the end.
And as we round out the end of this broadcast, let's give thanks to our great sponsors, ASR. They design and build the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. Visit them at advancedsimracing.com. RaceLab. If it helps you to improve your driving skills. Start using it now for free at RaceLab.app. And ButtKicker. Feel what you've been missing at thebuttkicker.com. And SimMSA. Find out how you can bridge the gap between virtual and real motorsports at SimMSA.net. And NinjaTrader. Visit NinjaTrader.com to get started with a risk-free trading simulator to start tracking your performance. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcasts. They're listed here on your screen. Additional thanks to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the entire team who helped put on this broadcast today, and thanks to all of you viewers for tuning in. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. Or you can check out our social media through the outlets listed at the bottom of the screen. And if you'd like to support the channel, go check out our merchandise store at simracingmerch.com/GSRC. The link is in the description below, and while you're down there, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, so you don't miss a moment here on GSRC. The next race for the PRL NASCAR Cup Series is at Watkins Glen, Sunday, August 8th at 8:20 p.m. Eastern. And there will be even more PRL action tomorrow night with the GT4 AM and GT3 Pro Series taking on the Charlotte Roval and the Red Bull Ring starting at 8:25 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar as well. Well, for Sam Riemann, Zach Johnson, and Dougie Beard, I'm Joey Tebben. Until next time, race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.